Good evening, and welcome to Toolbox Tuesday. I'm Renee Powell with Oklahoma Family Network. Tonight, we are very excited to have Victoria Wood sharing about overdose prevention. Victoria Wood is the Overdose Prevention Field Representative at the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. Victoria graduated with her undergraduate degrees in psychology and forensic science from the University of Central Oklahoma and is pursuing a master's degree in criminal justice. Since being in her current role, Victoria has helped provide overdose prevention and harm reduction training, technical assistance, and shared resources to access partners across the state of Oklahoma. Victoria's prior professional work was through the Oklahoma Human Services, providing collaboration services with substance abuse treatment sites, developing relapse prevention plans, maintaining close relationships with the drug treatment court system, and implementing personal service plans for individuals struggling with substance use, misuse, and abuse within the court system. She is dedicated to educating the public regarding overdose prevention efforts, emphasizing the importance of disassociating the stigma tied to mental health and substance abuse treatment, and providing unconditional support to the residents of Oklahoma. So Victoria, we are so glad to have you, and I'm going to hand it to you.
Thank you. Good evening, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I will try to keep this as brief as possible, but also it's really in depth, so kind of goes in a contradicting parallel with it. I will be deep diving into a PowerPoint that I'm going to share. I don't really like things to be super formal. I'd rather just kind of be like a conversation. So if at any point in time you guys want to unmute or put something in the chat, if you have any questions, personal experiences, any opinions that you'd like to kind of converse about, please do. I like it when people engage and we kind of just have this go about topic so that we can all kind of work off of each other. And if you have any tips or tricks that worked for you or somebody that you know or loved ones who might be in their own variation of recovery or lived experience that you'd like to talk about, please feel free and safe to do so in this environment. I am going to be turning my camera off just because I won't be able to see anybody whenever I go to share my screen. But as Renee did say, Tammy's going to be monitoring the chat. So if anything does come up, please do just let her know or just come off of mute, like I said. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on my piece. All right. So my whole team kind of created this as a collaboration effort for the fact that each of us had different experiences and interactions with individuals in the community and society who have either gone through their SUD, substance use disorders, recovered from them. We work with partners who have a multitude of different experiences within their own ballpark. So this was just a big collaboration effort to kind of break it down. And we usually present this to anybody who's working with the whole lifespan group from early education to all the way to 80-year-olds. So this is just our big accumulation of all the information that we were able to gather. There'll be a handful of topics that we do talk about, some basic definitions that you'll hear me refer to throughout the entire presentation, and then some statistics about what's going on as a nation and then within our own backyard of Oklahoma. What harm reduction is not, Narcan 101 or naloxone 101, recognizing and responding to an overdose, and then some support strategies that we do have available through our department and then our neighboring departments. So jumping right in. A couple of keywords that we are going to continuously hear or see throughout this presentation are opioids, overdose, and naloxone or Narcan. I do interchange those continuously. What are opioids? Opioids are substances that may include prescription medications used to treat pain. A handful of these are our most common ones that we see in our lethality reviews. And then medications to assist substance use disorder, SUD, treatments, illicit drugs. All of these are the ones that we do continuously see in society. A lot of these are mixed or they have different analogs associated to them, but these are the most common substances. What is an overdose? Specifically, an opioid overdose. It's a severe and sudden condition resulting from an excessive amount of opioid being swallowed, inhaled, injected, or absorbed through the skin, intentionally or unintentionally, leading to possible death. Naloxone is a life-saving and safe medication that can reverse an opioid overdose when given in time. That is very important. It has to be given within a specific time period. I will bounce between naloxone and Narcan, one being generic and one being the name brand throughout this entire presentation, but they are the same thing. Moving to those statistics that I was talking about as a nation for the first couple of slides, and then as Oklahoma for the last couple. This figure just discusses the age-adjusted rates of drug overdose deaths involving opioids between 2003 and 2023. In 2023, 105,007 individuals did experience a drug overdose death. And between 2022, that rate was 1,000 or 108,000. So we did see a decrease, which is amazing. We love to continue to see those decreases. I did attend the opioid response seminar, strategy seminar recently, and they did have some statistics coming out for 2024 and 2025. And we are also seeing decreases in those rates, which is phenomenal. We're hoping to continue to see those. After the rate of drug overdose deaths nearly quadrupled from 8.9 in 2003 to 32.6 in 2022, the rate also decreased to 31.3 in 2023. So there are systems in place and strategies in place that are allowing us to see those decreases. We just have to keep on pushing for education, harm reduction, overdose prevention strategies being in the public, and making sure that everybody has access to those. This figure just illustrates that drug overdose deaths did decrease among adults and young or middle-aged individuals from 2022 to 2023. Between 2022 and 2023, the rate did decrease among adults between 55 and 64, as well as our group between 65 and older. The rates were highest at 35 to 44, and adults aged 65 and over experienced the largest percentage increase in drug overdose deaths compared to our youngest age group, which was 15 to 24. Age-adjusted drug overdose death rates by race. This was our first time seeing in our slides that we had a racial focused slide. Sometimes those are more of a taboo topic or controversial topic that we have been trying to get approved through all of our presentations. So we finally got one because we had enough information to produce one of these slides, which is super educational because a lot of people do ask if there are any relations to race or ethnicity and drug overdose deaths. So we were able to finally produce one between, I'm going to move this up so I can see. Goodness gracious, where did it go? Okay, we're going to go back somehow. Oh, goodness. Give me 1 second. I meant to be on this one. Okay, my apologies, guys. My computer has not been the nicest to me today. And I was really hoping that it was not going to do anything like this in the middle of it, so I do apologize. Okay, between 2022 and 2023, rates increased for Black, non-Hispanic, and Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islanders. In both 2022 and 2023, rates were highest for American Indian or Alaskan Native individuals, and Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islanders, people did experience the largest increase from 22 to 2023. Jumping into our own backyard of Oklahoma, we did have a couple of slides dedicated to specific substance categories and then specific substances. This first one being categories, we do see that all drug overdoses are polysubstance overdoses, which just categorizes as more than 2 substances within somebody's system when they pass away. Did have the highest drug overdose death rate as anticipated because they do qualify for just 2 or more. Compared to opioids, methamphetamines, cocaine, and benzodiazepines, we did see a downtrend for opioids following the PMP or the prescription management program that did release in 2013. So we're very thankful for that. However, following COVID-19, we saw an increase in the majority of substances as well as overdose death rates, just due to the world shutting down, people not having those healthy coping mechanisms available, not being able to access proper health care just because everybody had an influx of treating those who were sick going on. It was just a multitude of different capacities coming together at once that did send all of our drug overdose death rates up following that COVID-19 epidemic. And going into the specific types of substances, we see these most commonly, same as the first slide: hydrocodone, oxycodone, morphine, methadone, heroin, fentanyl. Heroin is our one substance that we cannot monitor or regulate compared to the other ones that you can find in medical settings. However, fentanyl is having a multitude of different mediums be introduced into society, such as liquid variations, powdered variations, transdermal patches, compressed pills. It's also being mixed in different substances. So it's going to have a significantly higher chance of being in somebody's system when they do pass away. This graph just breaks it down into age groups and gender for Oklahoma. We did see that males were impacted at a significantly higher rate than females. Our epidemiology team did kind of share with us some commonalities that they were seeing. More or less, men do to traditionally engage in riskier behaviors than females. Men are also less likely to want to seek out help if they are potentially suffering from SUD, substance use disorder. And men do not usually have as many access points, or they believe that they are okay, so they do not need to seek any assistance. So that is why men are traditionally at a higher risk than females. There are other reasons, of course, that are at hand, but those were the common ones that we were seeing reoccurring for this specific slide. Unintentional drug overdose deaths broken down in between years. So following that PMP project or that prescription management program, we did see a significant decrease from 2013 to 2023 within these two specific lines. As you can tell, there's no data following 2020 because there was not enough significant data to track. So they did not get put into there, which is it's a good thing, because that means that that is working, that program is assisting with making sure that things are being tracked according, and that people are not bouncing between physicians to try to have their prescriptions refilled. So it's a very useful strategy. Moving into harm reduction, we'll break it down to like what harm reduction is not, what are some accessibility points within our society, what we're seeing for people who might be needing some harm reduction assistance, just a bunch of different things that kind of come together for it. Currently, it is a very stressful time for everyone. No matter where you are, what you're doing, what you're dealing with, there are so many different stressors that can be present in somebody's life. My favorite kind of analogy or visual representation of what that might look like for someone is the person who's always balancing plates. It could be multiple different things on those plates. It could look like Thanksgiving on every plate that that person has. They could have one in both hands, balancing on a foot, have one in like their mouth and they're balancing that one. There could be so many plates on that person that they just absolutely don't know what to do, and they feel severely stressed out. They don't know what their coping mechanisms are anymore. They don't have time for their self-care routine. They don't have time to do a self-check-in, a regulation check-in. It could be anything and everything. And when that does not happen and that person is becoming a pressure cooker, then they could hit a moment in a wall where they need to seek it elsewhere, and they might not seek that immediate release or that immediate stress reliever in a healthy capacity. We like to make sure we know what harm reduction is and what it is acknowledging. Substance use is not a moral failing. Just because somebody is experiencing substance use does not mean it will continue for the rest of their life. It could just be a period of time. That does not mean that they are a failure as a human. That just means that they are going through something that is of a higher power that they cannot take on right now, and they are not sure what to do in the moment. But they are not failing at life. They are just having a moment of what most people think is different than whatever their riskier behavior. They might be experiencing something that they cannot understand. Substance use disorder is a chronic treatable disease that individuals can recover from and go on to live very healthy lives. There are safe, effective, and life-saving tools available to help people engaging in substance use and experiencing substance use disorder. All people deserve access to public health resources. No one person is better than the other. Everybody should have the just decency to be like, if you need some assistance, I got you. I will be your village. I'll be your supporter. I will back you through whatever you need. But you can't pressure somebody into meeting them where they are not at in that moment. So it's a very balancing kind of set of rules. It's a balancing act for a lot of people, but it is a village. It does take a village to help someone through this. Harm reduction, per definition, is a set of practical public health strategies designed to reduce the negative consequences of substance use and promote healthy behaviors in individuals and communities. It's also a movement for social justice built on a belief in and respect for the rights of people who use substances. As we're talking about what it is, it's very important to emphasize what it is not. Harm reduction is not an attempt to minimize or ignore the real and tragic harm and danger associated with substance use, misuse, abuse, and dependence. It's not an assigned set of rules, regulations, or policies. It's not a threat to abstinence-based goals. It's not allowing people to do whatever they want. We hear this sometimes continuously, depending on what environment or audience you're working with, to what capacity that you are exposed to substance use or substance use disorder, that people do believe, well, if you're not really helping them, you're enabling them. That is not true. Everybody has their own recovery journey. Everybody has wherever they're in the moment. We are just providing as much of an assistance as we can for whatever they're willing to accept in that time. Harm reduction allows for the change cycle to continue, A lot of people are very familiar with what this diagram is because it has been introduced in different environments. I first saw it when I was taking a psych class because it was used for changing positive behaviors, but it can be used for anything if you're just wanting to have a change in your life. By engaging in harm reduction strategies, people using illicit substances make a choice to increase their safety and advancing their change behaviors. Relapse is a part of many recovery journeys, as we know. Anywhere from 40 to 60% of those who are recovering from substance use will experience a relapse. For people who use substances that attempt to achieve abstinence, cold turkey, the average time from first treatment to last use is 9 years, with multiple episodes of care in between. We know that recovery is not linear. Everybody has their own variation of it. If you want to use it as the cycle is showing here, if somebody falls out of one step, they can pick up where they left off, or they can start completely back over. It's completely up to them and where they are willing to be met at. Once that person has fully acknowledged that they are probably overwhelmed and they're in that pressure cooker setting, it is time to take a moment to do like a regulation check-in. Where is that person at and where are they willing to be met and what are they willing to accept in time? What do you do when you're stressed? That is a big question that we usually ask everybody is what are you doing whenever you feel that overwhelming or you feel that pressure cooker ticking and you're about to explode? What are you doing? What are you able to like have the moment where you're like, I'm about to be triggered to somewhere I cannot back down or I'm about to lose it. So a few examples that our team kind of came together with was instead of reaching for wine when you immediately get home because you're super overwhelmed from work, go on a walk and kind of have a moment of reflection. Instead of yelling, count to 3. Instead of crashing out, this could be anybody's version of crashing out. It doesn't have to be physical. It could be just you come home and you just lay on your floor and have a moment to just breathe, do some belly breathing exercises, take a moment to just have an introspection, see what's going on, just do an internal regulation check-in. If you're not sure where to begin because you're just that overwhelmed, I like to do brain dumps where I just write everything out on a piece of paper and see what's going on, see if there's anything I can change in the moment, if there's anything that's like out of my control that I'm giving extra energy to that I don't need to. Build or creating a self-care plan if you haven't checked in on one of those in a while, or developing one if you're not sure what that is, or a routine. So, you know, when you are getting to those points of, I can't take another thing on my plate, what do I need to do? What is easily accessible for me to do to check in right now? What can I go for that walk? Or can I go get my nails done? Or can I go read a book in a park? Those kind of things. Making intentional time for yourself is super, super important. You cannot give from an empty cup. If you have nothing else, you're not checking in with yourself. It's kind of like the airplane analogy. You have to make sure you have your safety mask and your oxygen mask before you help that next person, because if you don't have oxygen, then you're in no position to help someone else. Harm reduction recognizes that not all people who use substances have the same experience or level of substance use and considers the spectrum of use when providing appropriate resources. The easiest way that I like to put this into an example that's easily digestible for everybody is kind of using caffeine, because it's not a buzzer word for a lot of people or a trigger word. I apologize in advance if it is for somebody, but caffeine is an example. I like to use whenever I was in college, undergrad. Beneficial use was I would have a cup of coffee in the morning, going about my day. Nothing was wrong. Nothing was inherently happening. All things were good. No negative effects. My sleep schedule was good to go. This was my freshman year. We were just buzzing by. We are doing great time. That casual, low risk use. Okay, things are getting harder. Classes are getting a little bit more difficult. I'm not able to keep up with as much because I'm taking extra things, extracurriculars, joining more clubs. I'm needing to stay like more awake, more alert. So now instead of just having a coffee in the morning, I'm having a coffee in the morning, a cold brew at lunch, and then I'm having an energy drink when I'm about to go to the library to study for the night. Multitude of different capacities of caffeine are now entering into my system at different times. That high risk harmful use, okay, we're no longer sleeping well because we have so much caffeine going through our system, which means our sleep schedule is dysregulated, which means other things are going to start to be affected and other systems are going to start to shut down because you're trying to stay in that preservation mode of making sure you can rely on autopilot to take care of everything through finals week or through midterms, you name it. So now you're taking different capacities of caffeine, like I said. And then I added caffeine pills into that one, or pre-workout, because I was wanting to, stay healthy in the gym, because that was what I thought I needed to do. Because all of these things that were on my plate at the time were adding together, because you need to make sure that you stay focused on school, but also take care of yourself and the health realm. There was a lot going on. So that's that high risk harmful use. That chronic dependence or substance use disorder was when you're starting to dabble into, okay, well, now you're having heart issues, you're having heart palpitations, your kidneys are not being able to process your energy drinks properly. You are super, super anxious. You're having like anxiety because you don't have caffeine in your system because now you have a caffeine headache. That's that kind of example and that experience where now you have a bunch of other things that you are out of your control and you cannot immediately switch or change because you're dependent upon making sure you don't have that headache or that you're on autopilot or that you make it through that last final. So it can go from beneficial use to really scary like territory very quickly if you're not really sure, if you've never experienced it before. So just making sure that you're tracking it and understanding when you are starting to dabble into those more concerning areas, how to stop it, do those check-ins, and that you're going to be okay and you're going to be good to go. A handful of overdose prevention strategies we at the department do offer are naloxone or Narcan kits, fentanyl test strips, lock boxes or medication boxes. Xylazine test strips do come from the State Department of Health. Community-based services are our syringe exchange programs, safer use kits, wound care kits, Deterra bags or medication disposal bags. Our education-based ones are safer use information, drug effects, one-pagers, flyers, little cards that we have that are usually given out to like our education-based partners because children are very open to experimentation and we want to make sure that they know if they're going to do that they do it safely. And then the resource access index library. It's an accumulation of everything that we've pretty much produced through the department for resources, tips and tricks, talking to people about substance use, referrals, those sort of things. Recognizing an overdose, if you're unfamiliar with what it might look like. Somebody's breathing will be slow or gone. Their lips or nails may appear to be blue. If they're of a darker complexion, it could be gray. The person won't be moving. They might appear to be choking. You'll hear gurgling or sounds of snoring, or what we've usually heard it be called is the death rattle. They won't be able to be woken up. Their skin will feel cold or clammy. And unlike other substances, if it's an opioid overdose, their pinpoint will be tiny, like pinpoint tiny compared to super dilated. What are opioids? Opioids are highly addictive narcotics. They're commonly used to prescribe to treat pain. They are depressants. They're often mixed with stimulants. The most common ones that we do see that you kind of seen throughout the presentation are on the right, the right side of the screen. Non-opioid related substances that we do see and those polysubstance overdoses that are being mixed are on the left side of the screen. Those will come back up later. Risk factor for carries. So this is for the individuals that we experience or we converse with our other partners who are parents or caregivers of people who might be like special needs. They could have cognitive disabilities. They could have cognitive impairments. They could have impulsivity issues, low inhibition, unmanaged anxiety, depression, trauma. There's a bunch of new substances being introduced in society. So people are very based on like experimenting. Maintaining a sense of autonomy or independence. Every single person wants to make sure that they are able to take care of themselves. No person likes to be told, well, you can't do this because of A, B, C, D, E. My personal experience is I have a brother who is on the autism spectrum as well as having other cognitive disabilities associated to that. So mentally they are 13 to 14, but physically they're 30. They still want to be able to be treated like a normal individual. They do not like it when they're told, well, you can't do this because of. So we have to make sure that we're maintaining that sense of autonomy and independence for those individuals, balancing between mentalities, neurodivergent people compared to neurotypical. They completely process different information in different systems on their own ball games. You can't tell one person this and then expect the next person to follow in suit or completely understand it the same way that the first person did. It just does not work that way. Complex medication regimens can also be risk factors. If somebody is going to become a caregiver for someone who has multiple medications and they have to be taken at specific times, or something could happen, or they have multiple comorbidities at play that absolutely have different medications, once again, specific times, specific regulations and restrictions, that can be super stressful because you don't want to miss anything. You don't want to double dose by accident because you forgot to give it, or you did give it and you were unaware of it, or they took it and they didn't tell you. Those kind of things are all risk factors. Some other risk factors are anyone who uses opioids for long-term management of chronic pain, individuals who use illicit opioids or misuse prescription pain relievers, those who have a significant change in tolerance due to not being present or being like in a detention center detox following a period of abstinence. I saw this at DHS when a parent would be incarcerated and they would be released, and they believed that their body was acclimated to taking on the same quantity that they previously were. It was not. That was a very dangerous situation for them to potentially enter into an overdose. changes in quality or purity of a substance. If you are not there for its production, then you are probably very unaware of what's in it. Mixing opioids with alcohol or benzodiazepines. Those are not suggestions on the box, like on the bottles when they say do not operate heavy machinery, do not ingest alcohol. Those actually mean something. We've had some people ask if they are suggestions. No, they are very important. Those are those polysubstance overdoses that we do see. Having poor nutrition, a weak immune system, the heart problems, other health issues all play a piece and a potential risk factor in surviving a past overdose. We have been seeing fentanyl being heavily discussed within the media on a multitude of variations, mind it be within law enforcement being exposed, it's being found within certain law enforcement engagements. People are producing it for certain reasons. It's in the medical field, and people believe that it's all dangerous all the time. Fentanyl can be very beneficial if you are in a regulated medical setting. However, IMF is a manufactured synthetic opioid. 2 milligrams may be lethal for a person without the tolerance, and it's also highly variable depending on the amount present in supply. This is an average. If you are a very larger person, it could take so much more compared to if you're itty bitty and tiny. It could take the least amount. Large scale drug operations use it because it is cheap and easy to manufacture. Some individuals using it are very often unaware that it's mixed into that substance compared to others who use it intentionally due to its potency. Speaking about fentanyl exposure, powdered fentanyl must be introduced into the bloodstream or a mucous membrane for the person to feel the effects. The risk of clinically significant exposure to emergency responders is extremely low. It is not zero. Transdermal fentanyl patches are usually in medical settings, but we do see these sometimes within societies, within our unhoused population, so we have to be very well aware of it. They can still pose an absorption risk, even if they are discarded, so you have to be very careful if you do see it. If you do believe you're entering into a contaminated environment, go ahead and don like the same PPE you would if you were helping somebody who had a bloodborne pathogen, or if they scraped like their knee or their elbow and they're bleeding and you do not want to touch them directly. Always wear your gloves, wear a mask, wear eye protection if you have it. Just be very, very careful. Some naloxone information. Naloxone 101, each of these boxes will be addressed multiple times throughout the rest of the presentation. They are super, super important. Naloxone is a medication used to temporarily reverse the effects of opioids by knocking the opioids off the receptors in your brain. It does not delete those opioid receptors, it just temporarily removes them. That's why some people can slip back into an overdose or go straight into a withdrawal. Naloxone is a safe and effective medication. It cannot be abused, nor can it cause an overdose. Naloxone works within 1 to 3 minutes, and the effects last 30 to 90 minutes. This is dependent upon the person and what they have ingested as well. Naloxone has no effect on non-opioid overdoses. It only focuses on opioids. So no opioids, no effect. If a person did ingest a different substance, you can Narcan them. However, they might not come out of it. It won't hurt them. It just might not help them. What is going on when somebody is experiencing an overdose? This is the key and lock mechanism. So everybody has beneficial opioids in their system at all times. However, when you introduce a illicitly manufactured variation or a synthetic variation of it, the body does not know what to do. So it goes into self-preservation mode and it starts to shut down because it doesn't know how to metabolize everything that you just introduced it to all at once. So that's when you start to enter into that overdose state of becoming unconscious, getting really groggy, fatigued, going into a state of unresponsiveness. So you're going to end up being Narcan, which is going to be that locking mechanism that allows for those receptors to be temporarily removed from your brain. However, it does not delete them. So if somebody did ingest a larger quantity of, say, an opioid, they might need multiple kits of Narcan compared to if somebody pulls out of it really quickly and they're okay. Or if you accidentally give them multiple kits, you could potentially put them at risk of having precipitated withdrawal symptoms, which is where they immediately come out of it and they could be agitated or they could experience nausea and vomit, very delirious, very disoriented, those sort of situations. When responding to an overdose, remember the big 5. Evaluate for signs of an overdose, contact emergency services, administer naloxone, provide support breathing, and monitor for response. Going through all of these just a little bit more in detail, always check for signs of responsiveness throughout the entire process. Try to shake the person, call out their name, check their breathing. If no response, administer a sternal rub. If you're not familiar with what that is, you'll just place your hand into a fist-like formation and apply pressure to a person's breastplate or their sternum. and go in a circular motion. It's super uncomfortable. They should wake up if you're not waking them up. And if they're not reacting by any means, they're probably experiencing an overdose. Always call for emergency services. We sometimes hear some people don't because they're worried about legal repercussion. You are protected underneath the state of Oklahoma under Good Sam laws. So always call emergency services. If somebody is experiencing an overdose, rural response times can vary because of how far out first responders might be from the person's location, but dispatch will stay on the phone with you and provide additional support and information through the entire time until they can get to you on scene, as well as making sure that you are good to go and if they need to locate you. When administering Narcan, remember the 3 Ps. Peel the blister pack open, place the medication into somebody's nostril. Do not shove it up into their nose because it can be very uncomfortable when they come to. Just make sure that it's in their nose, and then press or dispense the plunger to allow the medication to go into the person's system. Providing support breathing, kind of like CPR. You'll tilt their head back, open their mouth, pinch the nose, start with 2 slow breaths into the mouth and then 1 breath every 5 seconds, and continue this until first responders are on scene. Monitor for response. Like I said, naloxone works quickly. Somebody should respond within 1 to 3 minutes. The individual's breathing will improve if it is an opioid overdose. If they do not wake up after the first dose, administer the second one in 2 to 3 minutes and the opposite nostril of the first one. For synthetic overdoses, multiple doses may be needed. Just flip between nostrils. Stay with the individual until first responders arrive. If and when the person becomes responsive, explain what is happening, as it is a very scary situation, and put the individual into the recovery position. If someone also ingested a sedative on top of an opioid, they might remain unconscious, but they will start breathing again. So just be aware of that as well. What is the recovery position? We also call it the nap time position. If you're unfamiliar with what the recovery position is, you'll make sure somebody's parallel to the floor. Tilt their head backwards, ensure a clear airway, and straighten their head and neck. Place one arm at their side and the other arm across their cheek with their hand against, across their chest with their hand against their cheek, and bring their knee to a 90-degree angle. You'll rotate the person towards you just so you can keep an eye on that airway and make sure that they have supported breathing. When you put it all together, Narcan is not harmful if there are no opioids in the bloodstream. It cannot be used to cause an overdose or set anybody back in their recovery journey. Any delay in administering it can lead to death or injury. It can be given at any point during an overdose. It is effective usually within 1 to 3 minutes. The effects usually last 30 to 90 minutes, getting you time to get more help. That could be getting another kit, flagging down first responders, having somebody switch off with you on the support breathing, anything and everything. Naloxone has become a standard in many communities throughout the country. No negative health outcomes have been reported with over 40 years of utilization, which is amazing. And in nearly 40% of overdose deaths, somebody else was present. So if you think back to the statistics, where in 2023, 105,007 individuals experienced an overdose, somebody else was with them and could have potentially helped them reverse that overdose if they had the education and the resources available. I did just throw a lot of information at you, so we're just going to do like a quick little check-in. When you put all this together, when you're talking with somebody about the potential substance use, misuse, abuse, or if they're wanting to experiment, make sure you provide them choices and make sure that they're in a safe headspace when they're doing this. So this could be, instead of doing this, why don't you try this? Or if you are willing to do this, please understand that these are the possibilities of what could happen because it's a very unpredictable experience. Should does not exist. Be honest about the risk presence. So what this more or less means is when you're talking about it, say like to a child or whoever you're being a caregiver to, you shouldn't tell somebody, you shouldn't experiment with this because more or less we are humans, we're desired to try to go after what we're told we cannot do or we cannot access. So they're most likely going to be more inclined into engaging in that behavior. So try to be honest about, well, if you did do this, this is what could possibly happen. It might not, but this is what is a possibility. Don't beat around the bush. Be very direct about all the safety risk at hand. I prefer it when people just come straight out of the gate and are very confrontational and tell me this is what you can expect. I don't like it when somebody's like, well, maybe not. Or, you tried it once, it was fine, you can do it again. No, that's not how that works. Just because it worked one time does not mean it will go again the exact same way. Very unpredictable situations, unpredictable scenarios, everything can fluctuate, everything can change in a heartbeat. If you're talking to younger kiddos or if you're talking to people who are very, very visual human beings, I prefer drawings or pictures or diagrams of what not to do or what to look for Or if you see this like on the ground and you're not sure what it is, report it to somebody. This is what Narcan looks like. This is what you should do. I'm a very visual person, so I have always said drawings are very helpful if you're explaining all this to somebody. If you are trying to have a conversation with someone that you love and you're not sure what to do about it because it can be very uncomfortable or can be very like taboo, or they're not really sure if they want to even have that conversation because they don't want to think that that person is engaging in those behaviors, practice with somebody. You can talk to yourself in the mirror if that makes you most comfortable, talk to your therapist, talk to a friend, talk to somebody that you trust. Just practice it to make sure that you feel the most confident in giving all the information to the next person. Be prepared to be asked questions. I did not expect, like when I was coming from DHS, all the teenagers that I was handling and dealing with, they were very curious human beings. I was a why child, they were why children. We always wanted to know what was going on, why it was going on, why can't we do this, why can't we touch it, all of the things. So make sure you're prepared to be asked questions because children are always very inquisitive. Like I say, be curious, be open-minded because it's probably going to save a life. Reassurance of not being in trouble and that you should always contact emergency services if you're worried or if you're unfamiliar with what is going on in a situation, or if you found something and you don't know what to do with it. You're not going to be in trouble. This is usually for our younger population that we're talking about this piece. It's just because they need to know that you're not doing something that's like going to get you into a world of hurt or into a world of not knowing what's going on. It's to be the most open-minded and to make sure that if you are unfamiliar with what's happening, you do feel comfortable enough to call 911. Work together to create a safe plan. This can look like, if you're not with me and something happens, what would you want to happen? What would you want to do? Where do you want to meet? Who can you feel comfortable enough to call if you can't get a hold of me and something's going on? Just like you would for a natural disaster. If you have anybody who might be potentially engaging in substance use or going through an active SUD, understand that something can change and that they might need to have an additional resource on the side. So making sure you know what that looks like for them and that they know what it looks like for you. Go through what a Narcan unit looks like and how to use it. We have multiple opportunities and accessibility points for everybody to have those units on hand. Keep it in your first aid kit. Keep it in your car. Keep it on your person. Just make sure you know how to use it so that if in point in time you are put in a position where you might need to reverse an overdose, you're comfortable enough with doing so. Talk about the protective factors at hand whenever you're in certain situations. This could be communication across all team members. If you're in a scenario where there is multiple people who all work together to care for one individual, make sure everybody knows what's going on. Keep those communication ties open. Instituting medication checks to allow for that person to maintain their autonomy and independence, but also that you feel safe enough for them to do so. Timed medication bottles have been an amazing, amazing resource that we have seen for people who are wanting to make sure that they can stay within their own personal homes with their caregiver, but also allowing them to keep their routine and not disrupt anything if we don't have to. Risk-aware choices associated to experimentation. Understand why someone may want to experiment, such as it could be an emotional coping strategy for the moment, possible novel sensation, or a sensory-seeking behavior. It could be any of the above, but just have that open communication tie where you can be like, so you're in this headspace. Do you mind telling me why, what you're wanting to get out of it, what you're looking for in the future, those kind of conversations. What a safe sitter situation looks like if you've never experienced one and somebody's telling you, well, I'm going to try this. Okay. If you can't stop them, do you know what to do in case they go through it? That kind of the never use alone hotline is sort of a safe sitter situation. Someone who is using any kind of substance can call a specific hotline number. It's also on here and we'll provide you guys the additional resource. And a dispatch member will stay on the phone with them the entire time that they're going through that experience. However, if they become unresponsive, they can notify first responders for that individual's location, because at the beginning of the phone call, they talk about where they're at, what they're doing, what they might be potentially ingesting, and so on and so forth. So a safe sitter situation. Understanding the reason for using substances. This goes in hand with the risk awareness choice. Why are they wanting to do it? Are they just wanting to feel good for a brief period of time, curb a nasty emotional experience, replace something else with a different substance, emotional regulation strategy? What's going on? You got to be able to keep like as much of an open mind as possible about this whole experience. Like I said, we are protected in Oklahoma because a lot of people don't call or they're uncomfortable with calling first responders because of potential repercussions on the legality side of it. The 911 Good Samaritan law, Good Sam, protects anybody from drug possession charges if you call 911 or seek medical help for yourself or someone else who's overdosing. There are a couple things that inevitably it will not protect you from, such as being charged with drug trafficking, distribution, or possession with intent to distribute. It won't protect you from being arrested with outstanding warrants, but it will protect you from being charged with possession of drugs if you are trying to get help for yourself or someone else who's overdosing. And it will also protect you from being charged with possession of drugs if you carry and administer naloxone. Because every second counts in emergency situations, Good SAM laws exist to encourage bystanders to help others in those moments without fear of legal action. Oklahoma has both Good SAM law and several other laws allowing for civilian naloxone access. This is more or less trying to emphasize that the bystander effect is very heavily a thing and it does occur. And with those 40% of drug overdose deaths having somebody else who is present, we need to make sure that those people know that there is protection behind you. You're not going to face legal repercussion. We're just wanting to make sure that you feel the most safe and encouraged to seek out help and also call 911 if something is happening. Putting all of this together, supporting harm reduction efforts, it's able to provide educational materials on harm reduction and recovery, treat people who use substances along with their families with compassion and dignity, use person-centered language when discussing substances and usage, encourage a relapse prevention plan development, place a Narcan kit with every first aid kit on site. The Never Use Alone hotline is a phenomenal resource, and other harm reduction resources in living spaces and common areas, and referrals to peer recovery support specialists. And just having all of this in your resource index library is amazing in case you come up with anybody who you love or who might be seeking out additional support and you want to become part of their village. You have all of the ability to do so. Supporting caregivers and parents, being comfortable in uncomfortable situations or conversations. Always approach it with compassion, empathy, reassurance, guidance, and support. Resolution and emotional regulation mechanisms. What do you do when you're stressed or becoming overwhelmed? Doing that nice little emotional regulation check-in. Having a self-care routine established. Relief services, are you familiar with what they are? Do you know where they are within your vicinity? Do you know who you can contact? Do you have your village, your support village? Do you know everybody that you can reach out to when you're feeling super overwhelmed or when you're on the verge of crashing out and you need to have just a good old conversation with somebody that you love? Steps to keep yourself and your loved ones safe. Medication monitoring, rules, but healthy rules, just so you know like what to expect within the home. Open door policies for conversations at all times. And then make sure you understand that you have a safe space for questions at all any given moment, because some people might feel uncomfortable to ask a certain question, or they might be like, okay, I'm going to get in trouble, or you're going to think I'm weird, or this isn't actually necessary, or I always fear that I'm asking a stupid question. It's never stupid if you have it. Like if you thought of it, you obviously need to ask it because it could potentially be a beneficial answer that you need or an additional resource that you might come up with. So always have a safe space for questions. And that was everything. I wanted to leave some time for some questions, comments, concerns, additional, any information that you guys might want to talk about. But that is everything.
Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask Victoria? I guess the question I have is where could somebody like me, just a regular person, get Narcan?
You can, right now we have the okimready.org website, very still active. If you like to put this in the chat, you can, but it's okimready.org. I should be able to actually have it pulled up here as well. Anybody can go to this website. Where did it go? Okay. Here we go. Yes. Here, I'll share my screen with you guys so you can kind of see what it looks like again. Okay, maybe not. I did not want to work for a second. Okay. So this website allows for anybody in Oklahoma to access free naloxone and fentanyl test strips. You can click on either of these and it'll take you to the same tab. No, that's not it. Order naloxone. You'll fill out like a little brief questionnaire. Put in the address that you'd like to receive your free kit or your fentanyl test strips. You can ask for 5 fentanyl test strips or 10 fentanyl test strips and however many Narcan units you would like. some basic demographic information so we kind of know where in Oklahoma this resource is reaching. And if you are somebody who might be in the process of experiencing an SUD, do you want any information about treatment referrals? So this website is a phenomenal resource to have. Anybody can access it. And I'm the one who actually fills all of those orders. So I get to kind of help out and have a hand into our harm reduction strategies.
Thank you. I guess, if someone, goes down and they're non-responsive, you're supposed to call EMS, but what if you're in a place where it could take a really long time? Any tips on that? Like super rural Oklahoma.
Yes, we've had a lot of questions about that as well, and we kind of just provide like the additional support of always call 911, have them on the phone. They'll probably ask you to provide like secondary oxygen, which is support breathing continuously until they can get to you. If you run out of kits, CPR is your best bet at that point. Just keep doing CPR until they can get to you because anything that you like, any oxygen source that you can get into that person will help them.
Okay, cool. Thank you. There's a question in the chat from MK Long. As we go into hot summer months, what are the risks related to carrying naloxone or Narcan in our vehicles? Does heat degrade the effectiveness?
Phenomenal question. We get asked that very, very frequently. We have had notice from our providers who ship out all of our Narcan that it can affect the potency, but it takes a lot and it takes consistent exposure to hot heat to completely degrade the medication. Please do not just like put it into an oven to test the theory. We've had somebody do that. It will not work after that. It will melt everything. But we do live in Oklahoma. We can go through all 4 seasons in a day. We can go straight from winter in the morning to absolutely blazing summer in the afternoon. The medication will be okay because all of our first responders also carry it within their cars and they have to keep it in the hot exposure and it still does work. Just like its expiration date, it has been noticed that the medication potency still exists outside of the expiration date, so you can utilize it. And as we like to say, if that's all you have on hand, go ahead and use it. Anything is better than nothing.
Where can we find out which states it's legal to carry naloxone?
Where can you find out what states it's legal to carry naloxone?
Right. So like if you're traveling and you received it in Oklahoma, but you're somewhere else.
Yes, it should be an open, it's kind of like an open carry where it's approved because it's a life-saving medication. So you should be able to carry in almost every state. We have not had notice of it being illegal in specific states, because it is a life-saving medication. So I also believe that it's pretty much approved in everything because all airlines are carrying it in all of their airplanes. That's a phenomenal question. I have not been asked that, but we have not gotten notice that it's illegal in any state because every state provides their own variation of naloxone or the same medication that has different titles underneath it for the generic name brand. So I believe it is approved in all 50 states.
Okay, here's another question. If you are assisting someone through an overdose and they are agitated when they wake up,
Yes.
what would be a couple of steps that you might be able to, how should you respond, I guess, or how can you help them feel better or just less agitated, I guess?
De-escalating the situation is really touchy because it's every single person is different whenever they're coming out of an overdose. If they do get sent into that like precipitation withdrawal scenario, and that's like immediate agitation, immediate anger, you can try to just calmly speak to them. Make sure you keep yourself as safe as possible. If they are like wanting to charge at you, move, dodge, like do what you need to do to keep yourself safe first. But try your best to explain what the situation is, what's going on. If first responders are not present, that they are coming to help. If they're confused about what's like their disorientation, try to like remind them, you're here, this is you, this is what's happening, this is what went down, this is what you took. Or if you're trying to figure out what they did took, like open up that conversation, be like, what did you ingest prior to, going like unconscious, and try to just distract it from the conversation to try to bring it into a different awareness and have them distract themselves.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Does anybody else have any questions or any more information that they would like from Victoria tonight? Well, last call for questions.